Welcome back, everyone. This is Who Am I podcast with William and Steve. And today our topic will be on purpose, not the purpose of life, but having purpose in your life. So leading a fulfilled life.
A meaningful life.
Right.
And a wonderful life, as the film is.
Yeah, it's a classic. So where does meaning come from? Or let's start in the negative way. What kind of life are you leading if it doesn't have purpose and meaning to it? Which I would say is very common.
Yeah, you have to define meaning, don't you? You have to be like.
Well, let's just think of some examples.
Yeah.
Like what are people going through if they don't feel fulfillment in their lives?
Okay, that's a good way of putting it, because again, it's down to a personal thing, isn't it? So it's up to the people to feel if they feel they've got purpose. That's good. Yeah, that defines it. It's up to the person to define what to them is meaningful. And yeah, if they don't have that, I think people are sad. I think if people don't have that drive, I think whether consciously or unconsciously, they feel empty and unhappy. Some people don't need one. Like there's a diversity in humanity enough that there are people out there that they are. I call them Hakuna Matata people from The Lion King.
Yeah.
You know what, Timon and Pumbaa, they just, they're quite happy. It doesn't matter. No worries for the rest of your days. And it's like that. They don't need that purpose, that drive. But some people do.
Those kinds of people used to make me angry. I mean, not actively do, but just trigger something inside of me.
Yeah.
Because, well, actually, I don't know the reason that much, but when I try to find a reason, I think it's that I have this expectation that you have to be in control and you can't just let things go and be whatever they want. There needs to be some kind of control. And I'm not sure why I felt the need for that. Maybe because I was afraid that it would somehow come back to cause me some disadvantage if things were not, if the ducks weren't all in a row the way I wanted them to be. But traveling around my own country and then traveling to lots of other countries has helped me broaden my perspective and realizing just how diverse the world is. And there's still lots of room to expand that insights and that knowledge. There's always someone who's done more of it, like a perpetual traveler, for example. But you don't have to travel far to find someone who has a totally different worldview from you.
Totally different, yeah. Again, it's a difference, isn't it? We talked about in the previous podcast where anything that's different, we tend to struggle with to start off with, because we automatically think that because they're one way, they are either wrong or we're wrong, and they're right or we're right. We just assume that there's a right and wrong way to doing things. Again, I've repeated it 1,000 times, but again, things just are. Often things just are. It's their way of doing things. This is our way of doing things. And I think that's the first step in a lot of life stuff, is being able to just, again, accept and let it go. And I think that gives us a greater understanding of purpose, because we can understand and meaningful, because we understand what makes someone else's life meaningful. So, for example, as a teenager, use personal experience, I guess, my purpose was to do sport. That was me. I existed on this planet to run and play football, and everything else was kind of like secondary. I did throw myself into like the religious stuff in my mid-teens, with being raised Mormon, or LDS. But yeah, those things gave me purpose. Those things gave me meaning. And I think that over time we just change. We change. Our purposes can change. We start to, by seeing other people's, where they get meaning from. If we are open-minded enough, we can think, oh, well, maybe I could from that, or maybe something else could be meaningful for me. What's tough is when you lose your purpose. That's an interesting one. Like if you go throughout your life having one or two different things that are meaningful to you, like the sport, actually, again, we use a prime example, and then you lose your health.
Mm.
and that's your meaningful, your identity as well. I guess it kind of comes to meaningfulness,
Your
purpose.
anchor.
They kind of come to anchor, and they kind of deal with identity as well. When you lose those, that's
So what do you
interesting
go
thing.
through? What does it feel like when your whole identity is just negated or nullified?
Well, you do, again, for me, didn't want to exist. Like I again, that emptiness. I don't have a purpose anymore. Once you don't have, if you're someone who craves a purpose, or who are driven in that way of any kind of purpose, once you lose what you thought your purpose was, or you just like, well, I don't want to exist. What's the point? You just go, hey, I'm done now. Like, I'm not me. I'm just, again, the cliche statement, but true. You just feel like a slab of meat. You're just like, well, I'm just existing.
And maybe you've met someone who has gone through that, and they're saying things like this: there's no more reason to exist for me. And then it looks silly to you, right? Because you think, no, you're valuable. You have purpose.
And you can tell them what they're. You can be like, yeah, you do all this and you do all that. But unless that person focuses on that, or if I focus on that, then, and it comes back to, again, talked about a little bit before, but our mind and our perception creates our realities.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happened to me. I went through a couple of crises of identity, a couple of losses of meaningfulness and purpose, and realized I didn't need one. Like, it was a weird thing. Like, it was okay just to be me. Like, I already was enough. I already was just Steve, and that's okay. Because in the past, it was always like, no, I must be more. I must achieve this goal or do this purpose. I found meaningfulness in the simple things, maybe. Maybe I still do have a desire for purpose. No, I definitely do, actually. But I still want to achieve those same goals, I think, but I'm okay if I don't.
That's
Maybe
super
that's the
interesting.
difference.
You say,
sorry, just going through some
so
stuff.
super interesting when you said you don't need an identity. So that it sounds wrong, but I also think I know what you mean, and it's something that I've been using very recently. So let's go into that. Let me first tell you what the part of me that thinks that doesn't make sense what you just said, and that is to exist. Like, if you don't have an identity, then you don't exist. But everyone needs to live and survive, and therefore everyone needs to have an identity, right? But that's not what you mean, is it? I think let me see if something that I learned from a guru recently works with what you were saying. An identity is a set of beliefs about who you are and what you should be doing with your life. Is that the direction you're going in?
Bingo. Yeah. Again, that should be what you should be doing. That's a very interesting phrase.
Ooh, that word "should." Wow.
Yeah.
I think we should have an entire episode on entitled "Should is a toxic word" or something
redundant
to that effect.
Word. Yeah. So yep. As a non-word. Yeah, I completely agree. Yep, I completely agree.
I hear that.
But that's
word
what we do to
lot.
ourselves. That's what we do to ourselves. We tell ourselves we should be something, or we're told by society we should be something.
Right. Society, our parents have a huge influence, our teachers in school, our peers. So, it doesn't always have to be an authority figure. It could just happen organically. Like earlier, we're offline, we were talking about codependency. So this can happen at any age, but it's more common among children and adolescents that they define themselves through other people in their peer group. And it's often shown outwardly by the clothes they wear or the haircut they have, stuff like that. And then they feel
symbols, isn't it? Symbols that connect us.
And then they feel they belong to a group, and therefore they have an identity, and they're not lost or non-existent. But it's actually it's no foundation at all. It's fluff. It's just made up.
Again, it's a projection of a deeper rooted need being projected in an easy way to see and visualize. So we need to connect and have relationships, people like friendship and community. Like sometimes we don't think we do, but when we lose that, we then realize we actually, even a little bit, we need that in our lives. And those brands or those haircuts and styles, they're just visual, and it's good. It's healthy to have that connection with people, because often people that do the same things or wear the same things do tend to have similar perspectives. Not always, but there are commonalities there that are internal. Like again, belief systems. But what you start to realize over time as you grow up is that you can meet someone that looks completely different from you, or has different brand tastes or different whatever, but still connect with them because it's all about what's again on the inside, and who we are or who we want to be, who we should be tends to just vanish at that point. It tends to just go away. We just realize that actually it's all just the external is often just a nice stepping stone to finding people that are similar, but it doesn't mean anything ultimately.
I was just trying to think of some examples of identity crises or shifts. And I think more often than not, they are necessary. They are forced upon us. So,
yes.
So for example, if war were to break out in your country tomorrow, would you care about...
Very topical, very topical.
Sure. Would you care about, which brand of cookies to buy? It would be a huge paradigm shift.
Yes.
Or you mentioned earlier, if sports were your identity, like even let's say you even made a career out of it. When do football players stop being like professional top
they
tier
retire so
football?
early these days.
Late 30s?
Like it's like 30s, 35, maybe sometimes even younger.
So they must build up an entire career outside of, well, some of them train, but not everyone can become a coach. You need to have something else prepared, ideally, rather than starting from zero at that point. Or if your health crashes, or if you get older and you just, I don't know, you lose your eyesight, your sex appeal, just whatever you used.
But even jobs are what most people identify, like the main focus on people's like what do you do for a living is the question that most people ask. That's how we tend to identify ourselves. And when jobs are temporary. Again, it's all temporary things, temporary. And once you lose those things, you're like, okay, you might go find another job, but it'll be a different role, it'll be a different position. So you have to readjust your identity based around that almost, or your perception.
And we often try to postpone that shift of identity as far as possible. We don't want to change jobs. We don't want to move to another country or whatever it is. And that just extends the pain, right? So what is a good way, a healthy way to deal with...
That's the question.
With the challenge.
Stephen has left the chat. What is a healthy way to deal with?
Well, look back on your own life. You said you've been through several shifts, and so have I.
Yeah.
And even though it was painful, even though it was painful at the time, aren't you happy now that you went through it?
Yeah. Overall, yes. I just wish I wish again, I shouldn't wish for thinking stuff, but I wish there was another way to get to the point I am now. I wish there had been something that was more gentle and more like easy, but it's not easy, and it's not gentle. It's a full-on tornado at times. Sometimes again, we go through our lives and we do change our identities by different things that happen to us. But I think a lot of people go through what I call the crisis points, and you kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, where there's certain situations which force them to really think about who they are and what they want from life, or what they want from who they are. And so gentle ways of doing it, I think, in between those moments that just happen to us, I can't, again, it's been a long time since we did the last, it's been a while since we did the last podcast, but I think the last one was self-love and care, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's just being gentle. It's learning from a young age how to be gentle on ourselves, because a lot of the pain comes from our own like internal resistance
Mhm.
to things. It's we have to take control. Like, we can't be the victim. Sometimes I do play the victim at times and go, oh, I just hate this so much. Like, I wish this, I wish that. But those are rare these days. But when it first started happening, oh my goodness, the amount of time and energy I spent and wasted trying to push against and not just accept and move forward.
I think there have been times in this podcast where you have been an example to me about accepting adversity. And at least I can think of one where I said, I'm not there yet. I struggle to accept some things. I just insist that they are the way I think or want them to be. And it's taken time. And sometimes time is really all that you can.
Yes.
What am I trying to say? The passage of time is sometimes the only thing to help you overcome something. Fortunately, not always, but it seems to be that way in my life with certain things. And I've come to sort of accept that. But let me tell you some very practical thing that I've been using the last few days to help with acceptance of adversity and patience and so on. And that is a positive filter. So we often apply a negative filter to situations where we think, oh, why is this happening to me? And I could have prevented that mistake so simply. I never make that mistake. Why did I make it that day? And it doesn't even have to be a big thing, but we make a big thing out of it in our minds because we only focus on the negative thing, like something we should not have done, or something that should not have happened to us or around us.
Yeah.
And that is a negative filter because in my little life experience, I could say there's a good and a bad to everything. So recently I've been saying, it is good that I couldn't fall asleep last night until 2 a.m. And then my first reaction is stop telling yourself lies. You're just going to manipulate yourself into believing stupid stuff, and then that's a slippery slope. That's a fear that I've often mentioned. But I am not so afraid anymore of that happening, that now I'm capable of thinking further than that first knee-jerk reaction to something that doesn't fit with my worldview. So I'm saying it's a good thing that I forgot to take my passport photos to the communal office this morning, and I made a fool of myself and had to reschedule an appointment. So real life examples here. It's because at first I felt so stupid and embarrassed for doing that because I thought of everything else. I was prepared except for that one thing, and so it fell apart. So am I going to punish myself? But no, I tested the method again this morning. I said, it's a good thing that I forgot the photos. And then that forces myself to become creative and to think, really? Maybe, maybe if I think hard enough, I might be able to come up with a reason, even if it's a hypothetical reason. Maybe I am therefore able to hold on to my old ID so that I can open a bank account tomorrow, which I couldn't have if I had handed over my old ID and needed to wait 2 weeks to get the new one.
It's very good. Yeah.
Maybe. And because often, if in retrospect, terrible things in your life, like we said, can turn out to be a huge turnaround in a good way. But in the moment, you don't know that. But thinking hypothetically to a future point where you can have that positive retrospective.
It broadens your perspective.
That's one strategy. And so that creativity, using my brain to find good in the world and in other people, is huge bonus.
Bingo. That's the phrase that was going through my head the whole time you were talking. Was again, finding the good in any situation it's a skill. It takes time. It takes a lot of practice. Some people do actually have it naturally. Some people do have that gift. But yeah, it takes time. But no matter what situation that you're in, you can find a reason to be like, oh, you know what, that was good, even though it knee-jerk reaction, as you said, is to think it's bad because it causes pain. But then pain is good, like not in the sort of sadistic kind of way, but like it's healthy. Thinking, oh, I've made a mistake or whatever, that is good because it then allows you to go, actually, no, I didn't. it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's just it happened. How is this beneficial to me? Oh, I've been able to think and turn this into a positive thing. That in itself, that simple little thing, is actually an amazing positive. Then you can go to the bank account situation. You can be like, okay, well, actually, no, having this situation happen in a broader sense, there is always ways to find good in it. And that is in a general sense, it's very difficult, because also we're talking about things that are day-to-day stuff. Let's take an extreme situation, I guess. Let's say you've got a terminal illness. Let's say you're dying. It's a very different situation when it's something that extreme to still see the good in something. I'm a believer that it can be done, but I'm also a believer that it's important to process the fears and the struggles with those kind of things, because it could be very easy to go, you know what, I've lived a good life, everything's okay. And that probably is reasonably healthy, but also I think there's a few stages before that in acceptance and being able to grieve for such an extreme situation, like a loss of a child, for example, as well. These things cause people such pains, such trauma, that it's very difficult to apply what we're talking about.
Sure.
Like, because the reality is more extreme in that situation. And so I think it becomes practice that we learn to, again, through these everyday things that will help us when these times come, because we're all going to experience these kind of things in the future, like, again, extreme loss, whether it's a parent, family member. Again, even the loss of identity is actually probably on par, because we feel like, it can feel like a death of the self, not physically, but of the personality, of your identity. And that actually is that's a very serious thing. I ended up in hospital for 2.5 months because of those kind of things, mental health and physical health going on. And so, yeah, training yourself like you're doing is, and like we talk about anything in this podcast, will make it easier. It doesn't take away that it's difficult, because it is, blooming heck, like, those losses are painful, and we never, both of us never want to take away that or trivialize any of those difficulties, because we do understand, we do get that most of what we talk about is everyday things,
Right.
but they're exceptions to rules. And so I just wanted to say all that, because I think that often we can fall short, not we, like, as human, I mean, we as humans, on the practical and the theory. So we're talking about, I mean, you talk about the practical, because that was good. The examples we talk about the practical, but then extreme situations, yeah, they're very difficult. Sorry, just personal stuff.
No, it's good that you go to that extent, because some people who listen to us might say, you're just talking about everyday simple stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about. You haven't suffered the way I have. And that's probably true. There's always someone who's suffered more than we have. I have not had much contact with death for my loved ones and near ones. So I can't talk much from personal experience there. But you remind me of the movie The Ultimate Gift, which is a beautiful story about a young guy who did whatever he wanted. He only served himself all his life. I don't know, he's probably in his mid to late 20s at the time of the story. And his grandfather dies. And I don't remember the details, but anyway, he leaves something of a scavenger hunt behind for this grandson, because he believes that all the other relatives are lost causes.
Yeah.
He can't
Yeah.
he can't help them become better people anymore. But
Yeah.
maybe this boy can. And
Yeah.
so he goes through lots of huge challenges. Well, starts with small challenges, but ends up being a huge challenge. And in the end, he does fulfill the wish of his grandfather to become a better person, to accept his flaws, and to build connections with other people and to serve them. And there was a woman that he fell in love with, whose little daughter was terminally ill with cancer. And so that was the first time that he had really had to be there for someone who was dying, and learn to learning to deal with loss of life was one of the things that he got to learn.
Yep.
And this brings me to a religious point. A lot of people believe that God is the one creating the challenges for us, deciding what do we have to go through. Because you said be gentle with yourself, and don't cause more problems than there have to be, and embrace the pain. But who is the one? Is there someone who decides?
Interesting. Yeah.
And some people believe there is, and then they will find meaning in appealing to that person, that God, and trying to figure out, what do you want from me? What am I supposed to go through? And how am I supposed to develop so that you will stop giving me all this painful stuff? And others will say, well, how can he be God if he causes pain,
Yeah.
But pain and death should not be something to be avoided at all costs.
Yes. Bingo.
And we have seen that in the pandemic. A lot of people go overboard with avoiding just the possibility of becoming sick, or even dying from a disease. And that is like saying, it's not a perfect comparison, but it's like saying, I heard that someone in the neighboring town had a car accident and is in hospital. Therefore, I want all cars to be forbidden from the roads.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously there is differences, but yeah, so the concept is the same in the sense that the fear mongering that goes on.
Nobody do anything remotely dangerous.
Yeah.
Because of the possible consequences. That's no life at all. There is risk, and you should learn to embrace it, and to find asymmetric risk where the possible upside is larger than the possible loss, and there is plenty of that.
Yeah, it's just when you can't predict it. That's what was difficult about this situation. Is you cannot predict who's going to have the virus and pass it on to you. So it became a very complex scenario. But I agree that there had to be a point where we, again, individually, there's no judgment on people that do it one way or do it the other way. It's different ways of doing things. But again, for me as an individual, there had to be a point where I was like, you know what, we've vaccinated, we've avoided. Is the damage that's been done to mental health and other things greater than what's potential, again, can't quantify it, going on? And I was like, for me, again, personally, was like, okay, I'm going to be more relaxed about things now. And in a way, again, like we've talked about perception, you can take the positives from the negatives in the sense that actually a lot of people are now taking more risk and doing more challenges because they've been in lockdown. So many people are changing jobs. They're looking for more meaningful in life because they've been isolated for, a year and a half. And they're realizing that actually, again, connections are important. And again, wouldn't want it, again, the way it's been done, I struggle with. I'm like, okay, well, surely we should have learned these things a different way. But for whatever reason, again, the universe just does what it wants to do. The system just plays out. And yeah, because people have been shut away and had fear, they're now pushing themselves. They've seen in full blown, I'm stuck in a house, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, and miss that. And I can't see people, and they miss that, and they realize how important that is. So again, you can find the positives from these situations and implement them if you wish, or you can be like, that was terrible, I hate everything, blah blah blah. Again, either way, that's just, again, it's personal reaction to things. But I guess what we're talking about with this discussion is that we can choose. We can take control. We can actually, again, over time, it's not like suddenly you switch on a light bulb and, hey, look at me, I've got all the answers. Like you said, it's time actually is generally the thing that is best. Acceptance, patience, and time, I think, probably in this situation. Acceptance that you probably have no control over certain situations. Patience that this isn't going to happen straight away, and it's going to be a quantity of time that you may not be able to define. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 years, it could be 20 years for you to fully go through that process, and looping back around and accepting that that's the way it goes, kind of thing.
You can't control what happens, but how you react to it.
Yeah, I've always hated that statement, but the older I get, the more I see it's true, and it's so annoying to be wrong about something and then realize that's okay.
No, I'm not a huge fan of the saying either, because then my question is, does that mean all I am is a reactor? Like not a nuclear reactor, but someone who only reacts?
Yeah.
Or can I actually be an agent, an actor in that sense?
Yeah.
Am I passive, like only ever evaluating how to respond? Or can I actually create a situation? And it's
being all of it. We can be all of it. It's complex, but we can be all of it. You can, at certain times, you can be the passive, which is in itself creating. You're choosing to be passive in a situation, letting things go, and then trying to figure out, okay, do I feel healthy enough? Do I feel mentally well enough? Do I feel my circumstances now are okay for me to then be the leader, to be in control, to be proactive and do things, reevaluate, assess, and then maybe take time to rest again. It's a constant process. Like it's a constant process of all these things. Earlier on, there was something you talked about that I wanted to just briefly touch on. It was, again, to the same concept, I can't remember the specifics, but how you can be both situations. We can be the Hakuna Matata concept, and we can be the like life has meaning, life has purpose, because that's how I am. I think I have these goals. I have what I feel is me and my identity and purpose in life. But again, I accept that if I don't achieve them, so what? Like, stop being such like a control freak. Like, just try and do them. And if it doesn't work out the way you want, then reevaluate, reassess, and move forwards. And even if I never achieve any of those things, whatever. Like, I find, again, happiness and meaningfulness in small things, like the fact that I just exist. Like, it's just nice to know that, hey, I'm Steve.
Okay,
like,
yeah, let's go further down that road. So what you describe used to feel to me like cheating, because you set a goal, you don't achieve it, and then you're okay with it.
Yeah. Well, you are both okay and not okay with it. This is the duality of the multiplicity of the thing. This is what is a very difficult concept for people to seem to understand, because we kind of just one track things. But it's okay to be all. It's okay to just be like, yep, I'm annoyed at that. I didn't achieve that, but I'm also okay that I didn't achieve that. You take that energy and you just use it as energy, and you then store it and apply it later to try and achieve that same goal or a different goal, or not having a goal, just being like, you know what, I'm gonna play some computer games for a little while, and that's it, you know?
So the reason that this weird process is starting to be okay to me is that achieving the goal that I set, or that someone set for me, is not the thing that gives me purpose, or is not the actual goal in a sense. In German, there's a great saying, the path is the goal. I don't know if there's an equivalent in English, like the process to get towards something that you set out to get towards is what actually gives you meaning.
The journey is more important than the end of the start.
And yeah, that sounds like it. The journey is what counts, and gives you meaning, no matter whether you achieve that end or not. It's obviously sometimes it's necessary to achieve some certain goals, like you need a certain amount of money to survive, or you need shelter, you need warmth.
Well, you know, a driving test, a school test. We're put in situations where we have to go through that process, and it's not wrong. I mean, it can be, but again, it's not inherent.
It's interesting. Right. Your examples are very interesting. Let's get into. You keep diverting me, but it's fine. This is
Sorry, we
a
are
huge-
all over the place today, and I love it.
yeah.
I hope our viewers and listeners are okay with
Okay.
this.
You just mentioned schooling and driver's
Yeah,
licenses. These are
this is
things
easy ways to
imposed
define.
upon
Yeah,
us, right? These
yep,
are systems that we were born into,
yep.
and I was I was told you need an education if you want to survive in this world, because
Well, you should have an education.
yeah.
We should use the term should, because again, need and shoulda. Yeah,
So
I
this
find
is
the
a
words.
belief that was
Yep.
put into me early on. I remember being in fourth grade, so or even third, so being around 9 years old, and there was a fire alarm in the elementary school. We all go outside to our, we follow our
Yeah,
teachers,
yeah, yeah. That's
um,
the assembly points.
and we wait. I don't know if firemen actually showed up, or if it turned out to be a false alarm, or whatever. A lot of the children were cheering that yes, the school is going to burn down. Yes, we're going to be free.
Yeah,
And I was just repeating something that my father had taught me, and that is, you need an education to get a job to survive in this world. So I want to be able to do this schooling, even though I
yeah,
often don't enjoy it.
yeah.
And now I'm starting to question that. I'm starting, especially when it comes to university, and even more so when it comes to getting a PhD. How much education is actually important, and
Yeah.
and let's say not whether you have an education or not, because that's assuming that there is only one kind. There's actually many different ways to get educated. We don't have to go into the details, but the other example was a driver's license.
Yeah, we can a little bit. We can a little bit before we get to driving license stuff. Is we can get on a little bit in the sense that we're both lucky and unlucky in the sense that there's a lot of choice. So you can go down the route of an education. The problem is that we're taught that it's the best or only way to survive.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Is we're told that you've got to go for the routine education of the system that is in place, and there's no other way that's as good as that way. And that's the lie that was taught to us. Doing it's still a good thing. Going for education and going through a degree, PhD, if that's the route you want to do and happy to go down, it's a very positive thing, or can be. Again, it can be. Again, cannot be. But it's the fact that we were told time and time again from an early age, this is the way that you survive. This is the way you'll make money. You get a degree, you get a good job in this bracket of money, and that's you. Congratulations, you've achieved what we told you to achieve.
Yeah.
Anyway, driving license.
So now you have done good, right? Now and no, that feeling of meaning because you fulfilled someone's expectations or demands of you is real. That does feel good, and some people strive for it all their life. What's the term? What's the term when you
people pleaser?
Yeah, exactly. So that obviously it's not always a healthy thing. When we're children and teenagers, we are very dependent on what our parents tell us, because we're not able to see the bigger picture for survival, for example.
Yeah.
So that belief that, oh, it's actually a bad thing if my school burns down is helpful, because yes, in a sense, education helps me survive. It also brings a cost with it, and also has disadvantages. For example, it will implant more beliefs in you, and you will follow a script your whole life, and you will be an employee very likely, and be taxed to death and whatever.
Yeah,
we can talk about finances another time.
Yeah, so swerve just gently for that one. But yeah, again, it creates a one-track system, but then there is the counter arguments. That's what we do with our discussions. We counter and recounter and fulfill just a whole spectrum of opinions and perspectives, and I think that's good. That having education gives you freedom within the system. Again, it's because it's a system, the way the system created.
Yeah.
But if you have a degree, you'll have more choices in terms of what's available. The issue is, again, it's the biggest issue with that is supply and demand, like economics, basic, where if everyone has a degree, then you're not as in demand, so it becomes more competitive, and so you have to get a master's degree to be able to stand out. But then everyone's getting master's degrees, so you don't have to get a PhD to stand out, and it perpetuates a very competitive but also very dangerous way of quantifying our identity and success and our perception of who we are, because it becomes a big challenge. And yeah, life should be hard, but also it shouldn't be as hard as it is sometimes. I'll be honest, I don't get why we've made it hard on ourselves, why the system is so difficult. Like you talk again, even though you swerved it, come back to it, the taxes, the trying to get jobs, trying to make a living. Yeah, it's brutal at times. It's really brutal. Just to survive, like everything's going up at the moment. Like everything massively is increasing in its cost over here, at least. And people are struggling. Food banks never been a thing. How in one of the richest countries in the world do we have to have places that even just regular families have to go to get charity donations? And that causes, again, struggles with identity and purpose and meaningfulness, because when you have to rely on other people, that can be very difficult for you thinking, who am I? Am I just someone who relies on other people? And actually, it should be okay, because we're all gonna have to do that at some point. Like, people will have to rely on other people in different ways, but we're taught that that's a bad thing again within the system, and it's not. It's okay to have help from people.
I like your use of the word system. So you said it is like education, for example, will help you make progress inside the system. And I don't know, we could talk about what exactly the system is another time.
Traditional education.
But I think from the context, the audience has some idea of what we mean by inside the system. And the crazy thing is there is more than one system. And like the Matrix movies have helped people articulate this feeling that they've had a long time already, and that is that
there's something wrong with the system.
A few people have created something for us, and we're born into it, and they say that's just the way it is.
But we've also given it away as well at times. Like generations before and ourselves have given that power to the people at the top.
Right. By conforming, by believing it, by going along. And a lot of us are like children in this system, that we believe them when they say this is the only way, or this is the safest way for you.
Ooh, sorry, that was an interesting one. Maybe a topic for another time, but when acceptance isn't okay. At what point? Okay, we'll carry on.
Definitely. So then you learn about how money works, for example, and taxation, inflation, central banks, how money is created, how it can never be paid back in full, and stuff like that. And
that's the education we don't get unless we find it out for ourselves.
Right.
That's what's interesting, is that, again, traditional education, let's just call it like, straight down the line, and then branch off of different kinds of education. Like, yes, there are places where you can go to learn farming and go to learn how food works and how you grow things and how you provide for yourself in that respect. But that's not the system currently. We're away from that, but we still need that from other places. So what if we lose that? We have no idea how to do it. So that education is lost within our mainstream education, with how the current system works, with, again, like you talk about the banks, the financial system, probably using that word too much, but it applies, and how it's probability wise, it's set up for us to fail. It's set up for us to not be able to live at the higher tier, to have the wealth or to have the freedom that is gained from money, and having the lifestyle they tell us to have.
Right. And money was just one example. There are many systems that we're in, and it's nice when you start to recognize it. When you're in the Truman Show, and you finally hit the outside wall, where the sky is made of wood or something, whatever that was, and suddenly you realize, wait, I'm inside of something artificial. And I'm not saying, I'm also not excluding it, but I'm not saying everything that our senses perceive is artificial. I can't exclude it, but let's
let's not go down the simulation or whatever it's called, simulation theory.
But no, I'm talking about the thing, and it's not so much outside as I'm making it sound.
The ideology.
It's a belief that has been passed on to you.
Yeah.
And so how do you free yourself from it? Well, you listen to other people who say that there is something more than what you've been told.
And you find the ones that resonate with you. And you try not to get frustrated and angry. Again, you try, like, that's what, again, it's the grieving process. We talk about it all the time. Again, the grieving process, and we realize that we've lost something, and we've just found something. We have to go through a process, and again, focus on the positive, and make that as part of our identity, that we now have some knowledge. We now are free in what we know. But the problem is how to then change things, how to then live within the system until we can find ways to kind of create our own system, I guess.
Yep.
That's a challenging one. Again, that's one that's good. It will take years and decades, so that the next generation can hopefully more fully live outside of it. Again, like crypto, like a lot of, I think as a planet, I think societies are waking up slowly. I think we're all starting to realize that what we've been taught to believe doesn't have to be the way. It can be a way if certain people want those ways of doing things, and that's great. There should be diversity, but other options should be available. Like if you just want to go work on a farm, like if you want to live within a community, like it's like, oh, that's weird and backwater. You want to go live in a commune. It's like, what is wrong with that? Like, that is a meaningful, loving, purposeful life, to be able to just grow things. And it requires blood, sweat, and toil, because it's not like it's an easy fantasy. It's not like it's a stupid, false, naive dream. It's a brutal reality, having to grow things, and those safety nets are gone. A lot of those safety nets are gone. Like, again, if you remove the outside stuff, like the technology we've got, the doctors, everything, then that actually creates a very painful society. Not necessarily wrong, not necessarily right, but if you want to go down that line, there should be a choice for you to go do that. There should be that option to go do that, and also to have both, like to live within different systems together. Like, go to your 9-to-5 job if that's what you actually enjoy, and then if you actually enjoy after that, going to live in your commune with people that have been growing food that day, but you've brought home other stuff to then pay for other things. It doesn't need to be separate all the time. It can exist together, in my opinion. How we get to that, who knows? We just every day just Hakuna Matata and strive for it at the same time.
There are some people that I follow online who are very practical, as far as having their own little agricultural project and really being self-sustainable, becoming more and more independent from the system that has been built for us, for our physical survival. But obviously the mindset precedes that. So to come back to purpose.
Yes, I was about to say, but you go for it.
I find great purpose in whenever I learn about how I've been restricted in my beliefs, So having new insights brings new freedoms, and that brings more responsibility as well, because it means now that you realize that things actually don't work the way you've been told, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to build your own thing, like you've been saying, or are you just going to go back back into the matrix, where the meat tastes juicy?
And again, that's okay. Like that shouldn't be like a bad thing,
Oh,
because at the end of, go on.
you said you feel like people are waking up more and more, and
Yes.
I wanted to respond to that. I think yes, but not everyone. I
Oh,
think
of
people are
course
getting
not.
polarized more and more. I believe that
Yes. There you go. Okay, no, you're spot on. Yes.
our true colors are showing more and more in this
Yeah. Global society.
situation
Yeah.
of adversity, where some people say, "What? That's how money really works," or "That's how fragile our markets are," or "Politicians aren't really interested in serving me," or stuff like that. Lots of different beliefs will suddenly just disappear, or what the Canadian Prime Minister can just say that he will not give up emergency powers.
Yeah.
He can just choose whether
Choose
to do that or not.
Yeah.
And other people will say, "Oh, I'm glad we have politicians, and I'm glad they've built this system for us, because see, a pandemic shows the necessity for
Yeah.
governments
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and they will just go more and more into just tell me what to do mode."
Yeah. Well, again, it's what you do. Again, used it earlier. It's not what you do; it's how you do it. Again, government, some sort of power is helpful if done right. You know, the government can provide things and help things in a way that actually, as individuals, we couldn't do. The greater togetherness there is allows there to be more resources that can be used to help everyone. But again, it's because of corruption, because of selfishness that these governments use it to take away our freedoms, but bit by bit. Another thing that came to mind is the fact that this is nothing new. So this has been going on for millennia. Like this is something that's cycles of countries existing, power going to the few, either a revolution or war destroys that system, or famine or whatever, and then it goes. But now it's becoming on a global scale. That's the difference in the last 100 years. So, you know, the world, well, 200 years, the world has really only been massively connected actually in the last 30 years, the way it is now with the internet.
Through telecommunication, you mean?
Through telecommunication, all that kind of stuff, where instantaneously you can know what's going on anywhere else on the planet and communicate with anyone else on the planet. And that allows that by that, that's the difference in our current state of time, is that it's on a global scale. It's not just a country or two, or even in world wars, it was a bunch of countries versus a bunch of countries, but other places were left out, and different things happen different ways. But now it is like everything is connected, and that causes the polarization to skyrocket. It just, because you can immediately find somebody else that has the same opinions as you and reinforce those opinions through, again, internet and social media and all that, and you just group and then it becomes more extreme because we learn about what's going on elsewhere, the fears, the wars, the hates, the goods and the positives and the lovely things as well. And people choose to focus on what they want to focus on. So they're going to focus on those freedoms and want for freedoms, or they're going to focus on the hate and the fear and the anger. We choose which side we go on, whether it is by burying our head in the sands and giving up our choice, because that's still a choice. Like, you know, giving away our freedoms and giving away things, that's solely a choice. And that's where we need to get a stronger sense of identity. That's an interesting one, actually. Willpower and sense of identity help us resist the bombardment of people trying to take away our freedoms. Even just everyday people wanting something from you that actually you don't necessarily want to give or buy, or time, energy. having a stronger sense of identity and who we are and what we want from life allows us to go, actually, you know what? No, that's not healthy for me. I want to look after myself because it's important to, again, self-love, self-care, or to go, okay, you know what? Yeah, that's fine, blah, blah. And then that scales up to, again, politics and economics and all that stuff.
That's really interesting. So in a time in the Middle Ages, maybe when you knew nothing about what happened in the next town
Yeah.
or even the next continent, you were a lot more susceptible and gullible because there was only one information source maybe. And nowadays we're overwhelmed with information, but whatever your opinion is, you can find an echo chamber that will strengthen your confirmation, strengthen your beliefs, and that's called confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So, but I also love how you say that it is possible to build mental strength and to become more discerning about what is truth.
Yeah.
And we should have a whole episode on opinion and truth, but we're almost out of time for this one.
Yeah.
So I just want to wrap up with encouraging everyone to strive for that mental strength, to find your own truth, and to be open to losing your identity, to becoming empty of all beliefs, because they are a program, they are a programming inside of you. Whenever information comes inside of you, you don't have to accept it. You don't have to fight it. You can just let it pass through and say, interesting. I don't know whether that's true or not, but thank you for that piece of information. It might turn out to be valuable in the future. If that is what you believe, then I will let you believe that. It's, even how it so often is the case, I know that you don't know that. I know that that's merely an opinion of yours, but I won't attack you on it because that's fine.
Well, and in a way, we don't have the right to it. In a way, we don't have the right to try and influence somebody else's opinion. We can talk about it, educate, but actually trying to force opinions on people. Again, it's another discussion for another time, but again, to talk about influence and coercion and manipulation and what the difference is. And I love that we can just talk about it and all the different perspectives. And what you've just said there is absolutely spot on, that we have a choice to accept, and that what you talked about, the feeling like the emptiness, letting it all go, is so freeing. It's like the way you talked about it being a superpower earlier in our discussion, beforehand, I think, or during. I call it feeling bulletproof. That's my phrase that I use. Like you feel bulletproof to any external influence. You're grounded enough to know it's not going to affect me. It's not going to get past my my guard, because in a way I let it go through me. It's a contradiction, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're both getting to those points. And again, it's a daily process. At the times, those barriers will go down, and things will. It's not I've got the solution to life now, and everything's going to be fine. It's an ongoing process that we hope everyone joins us in and is enjoying listening to this. And you as the listener, your journey is going okay, and the pains that you are feeling do have purpose, and you have purpose just by being you.
All right, thank you, and see you again soon.
Bye.